All right, welcome to the Transfer Talks podcast. It's your co-host Ashmit with co-host Neil, and we got Akshay today, super special guest, transferred from De Anza to Brown, the Ivy League transfer. So congrats to you. And then Neil, would you like to start it off?
Yeah, for sure. So, we love to start these things off by like letting the guests kind of just speak on their experience transferring in their own. So, in your own words, like just give us like a quick rundown of like your entire transfer process from like starting from community college to like managing to transfer in like a year.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it definitely was not like my first option going to community college. In the Bay Area, high school and like college admissions, it's so competitive and it's people are really cutthroat about it, especially me because like I went to a private high school and it's just like, I don't know, people were taking it very seriously. And to be honest with you, I really was not. I was not taking it as seriously as I probably should have. I was just kind of going through it, going through the motions. And then when college decisions came out of high school, I kind of like suffered the consequences of that. And I ended up getting rejected most places I was interested in. So at that point, I think Purdue was like my option I was thinking about going to. And I wasn't really feeling it, to be honest. I wasn't really feeling Purdue at all. And so I started looking into like the community college system. And I think what I guess got me interested in community college was the fact that because of my AP credits, I could transfer in a year. And then also the tag program, I'm sure you guys know about it, but I could tag to UC Santa Barbara. So worst case, I'd be all right. And so that's kind of why I did it. Uh, and then like in community college, I took community college like super seriously because, well, I kind of like, I don't know, it was just like kind of motivation getting rejected in high school. And so I took it really seriously. I did, the necessary extracurriculars and kept my GPA up. And that's kind of how I'm at Brown now.
Mhm. Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I attended like a really competitive high school here. Wasn't really feeling the same, wasn't really
Yeah.
trying and decided to do community college. So to go back, right, like applying to UCs and privates are like two different things. I know for UCs, they don't look at your high school GPA or any of that stuff at all.
Yeah.
They consider it new. But for privates, right, especially those top tier schools, when you're applying, especially like in a year, they're definitely going to be looking back kind of to see if you are like competitive and like looking at your high school grades and stuff. So would you say like you had like the grades to like back it up in high school and in college?
Yeah, at the time of the application, I'm pretty sure I had a 4.0 community college GPA. In high school, I think it was like around a 3.7. So I feel like that's borderline. Like it's not going to be held against you, but it's definitely not a positive. At least that's
Mm,
the impression I get.
yeah. So like how did you decide to like stand out? Like aside from GPA, taking like 60 credits to meet that
Yeah.
requirement, you need to like do stuff like outside the classroom, especially like post graduation. So what are some of the things you kind of did?
Uh, I feel like I remember the way I approached it was like I try to have like a niche basically. And my niche was sports, honestly. And when I mean sports, I mean like not playing it, but like sports management in general. So I had an internship at Stanford's football team as like a recruiting intern. So like meeting high school recruits and all that. And then I was a sports writer for Deanza's newspaper and stuff like that. I also had like I interned at like a startup in healthcare technology. And then I had a fellowship program at UC Berkeley. It was related to like the space industry, and like we developed a project related to all that. And we presented it at like the NASA Ames Research Center in Mountain View. So I'd say those were my biggest ones. The other ones were like I worked at Dunkin' Donuts over the summer, and I was doing MMA since like fifth grade. But that's kind of it.
Oh, MMA, like mixed martial arts.
Yeah, yeah.
That's hella cool. That's hella cool. Yeah, I definitely think like having a niche is really important. Like especially being a college student, you need to like figure out that like you gotta have like some sort of idea of like what you're capable of and what you want to do. Make sure it's like different and like they don't have something similar. So I 100% agree, which is kind of unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like one thing about transferring is that like if you're doing like a 2-year transfer, they don't really look at your high school stats that much and not really test scores. But like for 1 year, they like actually like really want to look at that. So like, did you submit test scores and do you think it's like really important?
I don't think they're that important. I'm not even sure if they even looked at it, to be honest with you. But my SAT was a 1550. So I thought that that was like something that would help me. So I just submitted that.
That's pretty impressive.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like high school stuff is honestly overstated even for 1 year. But
Yeah.
because like
I,
most of the transfers here at Brown, they're all sophomore transfers. Like I'd say like 80% of them are. And
mhm.
most of them kind of have like the same impression. Like they didn't really try that much in high school. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think like especially being like an econ major, definitely have like a little bit less kind of like curriculum stuff. So going into kind of the writing application, right? You have for Brown, let's go like specifically, you have like your Y transfer essay, but then also you have a couple supplementals, and one of them being like the Brown's open curriculum. I'm pretty sure you had like you had to write something about that. How'd you
Yeah.
kind of approach these kind of like supplementals and like prove to them that like you would benefit with that like kind of education?
Yeah. I feel like with the open curriculum, they kind of want you to, I feel like it's less pre-professional focused, if that makes sense. Like they want you to explain why you're interested in taking classes, but you also need to have like some proof to back it up. Like you can't just be like, I'm interested in this, and like, okay, but how do I know that you're actually interested? You're not just. So I wrote about, I don't even remember what I wrote about, but I was talking about like what I remember was I was talking about stuff like there was a class related to like the space industry, and I'm not interested in like aerospace or anything, but because I had my fellowship at Berkeley that was like space related, there was something I could like back it up with. Like, yeah, I could do this, something I
Mhm.
was interested in. So
Yeah.
like I feel like with an open curriculum essay, you should talk about like a couple courses that relate to your actual like concentration. But I like focused on things that weren't, because that's kind of what they want to know about.
Mm.
But
Okay.
that's kind of how I
That,
approached it.
that's interesting. That's interesting. And if you don't mind me asking, right, like when you were applying to these schools, did you get into any like Brown level kind of schools? And like, were you kind of like going into the process, were you like confident or were you just like kind of just shooting your shot, you know?
Yeah, so I applied to like 20 schools. I was definitely just like shooting my shot and seeing what happens. The schools I got into that like I'd say I was kind of considering was Berkeley, USC, and CMU.
Mhm. And
And
did you apply Haas for Burke?
yeah, I applied to Haas. So I mean, to be honest with you, I was like committed to Haas. I was gonna go there. And then I got into Brown like pretty late into the process. And the issue with Haas for me was like I'd be entering in as a junior. And most finance recruiting happens in sophomore year. That was like the main thing.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
between like Brown and Berkeley, that must have been like a really tough decision. So like how'd you kind of like pick Brown over Berg?
Yeah, honestly, like I talked to a couple people who transferred. And then my fellowship at Berkeley, like the advisors there, a lot of them were transfers. So I asked them about it. And like even when they were trying to like sell me on Berkeley, I kind of felt like they were not having a good time. Like they were pretty stressed and like
Mhm. Yeah,
and a lot of the clubs at Berkeley, I mean, they're already like insanely competitive, but like they look down on transfers too. So it's just, I don't
100%.
really do all that.
Yeah, I think like Berkeley is like super competitive and it's like kind of like that tier right under like Ivies. So like everything there is like super like cutthroat. And yeah, I know people who actually got do you know Nikhil M? Like Nikhil Mumuswamy or Mumuleni?
No, I did not think so. No.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was one of my mentors. He got into both. He decided to choose another school because of like the same thing, you know, like finance recruiting,
Yeah.
recruits in your junior year and like it's all that stuff. But I think it's changed now. Berkeley now like allows you to transfer in as a sophomore, so that's pretty good. So any like Haas majors in the chat, you can kind of like
Oh,
apply.
that's interesting. Yeah.
And like at the end, did you take part of their honors program?
No, I did not. I remember I applied, but like they just never got back to me.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
then I
also
realized,
applied because I'm also at the end. So they haven't gotten back to me in like 3 months. So
yeah, I would not count on it. Honestly, I don't think it's that helpful. I mean, it's just extra work.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also like the honors program at the end, so you're just doing one extra project. It's not really like a dedicated class that's just like honors. So like if you're at the
Yeah.
end, so maybe hop in the honors, maybe not. But
Yeah.
uh like when it comes to like letters or rec, you had like about 4 months to kind of build that relationship since you're a 1 year transfer. Like how'd you kind of approach that?
Yeah. So this was actually like something I was really worried about. I knew one of them was going to be my accounting professor. I don't know if you know Kevin Mello.
No, taking
Yeah,
accounting.
he's an accounting professor. He was really great. I mean, he was super awesome. And like I told him about transferring and wanting to do finance, and he was like, I think he wrote a really good letter. I'm not really sure. But the second one was something I was really concerned with. I asked my calc professor, and she was like, because like I went to her office hours a lot, and she was like, I feel like you just came to my office hours for the grade. So I'm not sure if you want to ask me. I'm like, of course I just came to your office hours. What do you even? But okay, fine. So I just asked some other calc professor, and she was fine with it. I
Um,
don't think it was that good, but at that point, I just needed anything.
and did you
And
like kind of provide them with like a brag sheet to like kind of write their letter of brag?
no, I didn't because like one of, I feel like both of them were the kind of people like if you gave them what to write, they kind of be offended at it. So I just didn't. But I got a letter of rec from my advisor at my fellowship, and yeah, she was just like, just tell me what to write and I'll write it. So yeah,
Yeah. It really depends on the type of person. So, just to clarify, you got like three. There was like I think there was four that you could submit to Brown, but like you just chose three because those are like the ones that reflected best of
yeah,
you were. Okay, okay.
yeah,
And then yeah, so going back to that kind of like writing spot, I know we talked about like Brown's kind of supplementals, but like approaching that main like personal statement, right? I'm assuming you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like you didn't have any like crazy hooks. Like I'm assuming you weren't like low income, like underrepresented minority. So kind of how did you shape that sort of like why do I want to transfer coming from like not like as like crazy of a background as other transfers might be?
yeah. Actually, I should probably pull up my transfer essays, but I'll just talk about it. So basically, again, just like last time, you kind of have to like focus on something, I feel like. And what I focused on was I wanted to use, because I had like an internship at a startup, and then I had, it was kind of a reach, but like my fellowship was basically devising a project and devising the business and the technical aspects of it. So I kind of used that as like kind of, I guess, entrepreneurship too. So it was basically just talking about like, this is what I've done in community college. You know, I've worked on these kinds of projects. And I really think that entrepreneurship can be used not just to create, change in the world through new technologies, but also help founders achieve financial freedom and achieve their own success. And I want to transfer and I want to continue doing that at a 4-year university. And I really leaned in on that at like schools that are like entrepreneurship focused too. So that's kind of, yeah, entrepreneurship was basically what I leaned on. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah,
Yeah, I think that makes it a lot easier for like an admission officer to kind of like preach for you if you like have a really like set reason for why you want to transfer, then rather than being like extremely vague and ambiguous. Um,
yeah.
but in terms of like the whole application process, would you say there were any like weaknesses that you had to like kind of overcome or like kind of overshadow by like your other strengths?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my high school thing, but again, I don't even know if that was that serious. I feel like overall it's just, especially with like community college transfers, a lot of them are like non-traditional. A lot of them are veterans. Like I've met quite a few here. I don't know, weaknesses. I didn't think I had like a strong weakness. My only concern was that my extracurriculars were kind of all over the place. That was like my concern. But other than that, yeah, I really did not want to repeat high school, so I just kind of took it more seriously.
Hmm. So did you like so for I mentioned you're trying to go into like investment banking or like consulting, some sort of like finance job like
Yeah, yeah.
so from what I've heard, right, these AOs are like humanities majors, so they kind of like don't really want to see like, oh, I want to be an investment banker because it's not really anything like inherently new. So did you like lean a lot into that kind of entrepreneurial side to sort of like and not really mention a lot about like I want to be an investment banker, kind of just to like get the AOs to like think you're uh to like take you more seriously in that kind of sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did not mention like post-career like outcomes at all. Yeah, I did not mention investment banking. That being said, though, I have met people here that have like interned at like JP Morgan and like all that those kind of places like in wealth management. So I feel like admissions officers would kind of know what kind of path they're going down. So I
Hmm.
don't think it's at least for Brown, I don't think like if they know you're trying to get into finance, I don't think they hold it against you.
Mm, yeah, I think something I'm doing, I'm not really inherently like lying. I'm just kind of like glossing over like the fact that I want to work like in investment banking or consulting in my 20s, just talking about like, oh, maybe in the end I want to get be a professor or something like along the lines that the AOs would kind of like. You don't have to like inherently lie, but I think it just to reiterate, the biggest part is like kind of marketing yourself, making yourself seem like you're gonna make like an impact and giving them a reason to like take a chance on you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of like the transfer community, like I've heard that kind of like at some schools they like overlook transfer students, they like don't want to engage with them. Like how's the case at Brown?
I've definitely not felt that way. I mean, we're all in our own dorm building. It's not a great dorm building, but we all get around. People, I mean, yeah, we have like they have like an office dedicated to transfers, um, and like returning, so basically non-traditional students. At this point, I say most of my friends are transfers. Yeah, I think the transfer community here is, I think it's well developed. I think it's growing. It's definitely growing. Like I'm pretty sure it's like tripled in the past 3 years. So the classes are getting bigger, and I feel like at Brown at least, there's more allocation. But like it's definitely not a structure at like Berkeley where it's like you take this specific course at Indiana, you don't have to take this at Berkeley. Like there's like an approval process basically for the courses here.
Mm. Okay, and like, do you know if like they're kind of like open to approving like online courses? Because I know the UCs they don't care, but some privates they like actually look at that.
Yeah, yeah, Brown did approve of my online courses, but I know most privates don't. So yeah.
So like now that you've made that transition, you spent a couple like you spent some time at Brown. What's the difference been like in terms of like kind of the application, like the job process where like, being at community college, you're like realistically no investment bank's gonna like look at you or take you seriously. Now you made the jump to like an Ivy League. If you could just reiterate kind of like the effect um going to a school like Brown has been for your like job kind of huntings.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like when it comes to like finance consulting, I mean, yeah, finance or consulting, the biggest advantage is the network basically, right? Because if you cold apply like an investment bank or whatever, it's just going to go straight to the void, right? You need somebody to push your resume through. And at Brown, there's like a lot of alumni working in those kinds of fields. And you basically just email them and say, hey, I'm a Brown student. I'm interested. Could I have some of your time sometime this week? And I feel like I get a pretty good response rate with that. That's kind of the advantage, I say, of like Brown is that there's at least a network. And like I've been applying to like different roles. I feel like I get a higher callback, I guess, for interviews, like callback rate. But that's just how it is. I mean, in community college, there's like they need to see that you're graduating from a 4-year university. So that's the issue with that.
Yeah, and then also another thing about kind of recruiting, joining these sort of like consulting and bit or finance clubs, maybe joining a business frat is like a big thing. So have you kind of partook in that? And if you have, like, do you know anything about kind of like if they treat transfers differently or um, like just your take on it?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Finance Society, which is like the main finance, I guess, recruiting club here. And I definitely did not feel discriminated against as a transfer. If anything, I felt like it was an advantage. The president of that club, it was a transfer. One of the VPs was a transfer. So, and like I knew them beforehand. So definitely not. I did not feel like I was getting discriminated against. If anything, I felt like I had like a better resume
Okay.
than most
And like,
people.
how competitive are like the clubs at Brown? Like, I know Berkeley is like super cut. There's like 1%
Yeah.
acceptance rates for these kinds of clubs. Like, how's it the case at Brown?
Brown for the Finance Society, it was 30 people admitted out of 200 applicants. So yeah, it's still pretty competitive. Consulting, I would assume, has similar numbers. If anything, I'd say consulting is more competitive. So yeah, it's still pretty bad. I mean, but yeah, it's definitely not as bad as Berkeley, I'd say.
That's valid. That's valid. And now that you have sort of like transferred, if you were to like go back, back to step one, like before you started community college, what are some things you would have done differently? Would you have pursued certain opportunities? Would you have focused less on like maybe like focus less on like essays and more on ECs? Like kind of walk me through your mindset going through that.
I feel like for me, okay, well, no, that's okay. I feel like I could have done more research when it came to certain schools. Like I said, I applied to 20 schools, so I was just kind of like shooting as many as I can. And I feel like a lot of them weren't very personal. Like you reuse essays a lot. And like sometimes a prompt won't really fit an essay I've already written, but it's just like I don't want to write another one, so I'll copy paste, I'll change it up a little bit. I feel like, but at the same time, I feel like shotgunning it is a way to go. I feel like making that sacrifice is worth it. But I feel like, I mean, if you start early, you won't have to make that sacrifice. So I definitely say start early. Um, that's my advice. Like, I know that Brown has like a 2-minute video. It's optional, but it's not really optional if you want to be taken seriously. So that was something I planned out pretty early on. So that's just my advice, really.
Mm. And like one thing about Brown is that they're financial aid, like they actually look at your ability to pay. So like
Yeah.
kind of did you apply for financial aid or like not?
No, I did not. Yeah, because of that information. Like, and because of that, at least the people here, like I'm the only like traditional community college transfer.
Mhm.
I think so this year. Everyone else coming from community college. I don't know if you know about this, but there's like RUE at Brown. That's the basically non-traditional and military veterans. They get financial aid, like they're need blind. I know like a couple of traditional kids who got aid, but yeah, I definitely would not count on it.
Mm.
So yeah.
Now going in, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so Dianza, this kind of like what would you say is like the most important like aspect of transferring for like UCs and privates like in respect to both. So like I know for UCs they might prioritize grades. I know Dianza is weighted, so you're gonna have to like work a little bit harder for that 4.0. But then like Brown, being a private, it kind of like doesn't really consider rigor in community college, given that it like doesn't know how hard the answer classes are. It's not tapping like that. So what would you
Yeah.
say are like what would you rank the kind of like uh, the aspects of the application for privates and UCs?
Yeah, I feel like the difference for both of them was the UC essays, they're supposed to be more how do I
Or
get objective basically,
yeah, like
less subjective. Yeah, like basically, like the STAR method for interviewing, right?
yeah,
Situation. Yeah.
mhm.
You just have to approach the UCSs like that. You don't want to add like unnecessary emotions. They don't really care about any of that. They just want to see how you approach problems and stuff like that. Whereas with transfer essays, even though transfer essays are supposed to be more, I guess, subjective than high school essays, you can still fluff it up a little bit. And they want to see you express your emotions. I feel like that was the main difference. Like people say, like, oh, just do the UCA essays first and you can reuse that for the privates. I did not do that at all because like they're two different games, I think.
Yeah,
So
100%. Like being more professional versus kind of like um I think especially Brown being like a creative school, they really like when applicants what I've heard, they really like when applicants kind of like show off their like kind of personality through those essays and not being so like corporate. So,
oh yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
mean,
And like in terms of like your experience with like the transfer community, would you say like Brown has like a preference towards like CC students or like 4 year students kind of transferring it?
I don't think they have a preference, but the nature of like being need aware, it kind of turns away community college applicants because they usually don't come from like super rich backgrounds. So yeah, like I said, I'm the only community college traditional transfer that I know of. But again, I don't think they hold it against me because pretty much all of the RUEs, the non-traditionals are from community college. So
Yeah. And in terms of like your future plans in terms of your education, like do you think like getting like a MBA would even be like worth it since you're already getting like a bachelor's from Brown?
honestly, at this point, I feel like it's too early to say, but at the same time, I don't see myself getting an MBA. I mean, yeah, 2 years without working and it's like 100K a year. I feel like that's just way too expensive.
mhm. So like now that like you transferred to Brown, uh like I know you mentioned you're like it's too early to say like what's you're gonna be doing in the long run, but like if you could walk us like kind of through like the short run, what do you think like the next 4 years out of college might look like for you? Or do you even have like any idea at all?
Yeah, so I'm double concentrating in CS and applied math econ, which is like a joint thing.
Mhm.
It's pretty stressful, but like I knew this is what I wanted coming in, so I was kind of expecting it. I feel like what I'm doing right now is where I'm starting to like recruit. I'm not recruiting for investment banking, I'm recruiting for sales and trading, which is like a smaller division. So I'm
Hmm.
doing that right now. I'm also going for product roles. So basically, I mean, you're from the Bay Area, you get it right. Like
Yeah.
your dad or your mom knows a lot of people working in the companies you want
Yeah.
to work at. So he's just asking for referrals and all that.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what's going on now. Um, at this point, I'll say just mostly recruiting is basically on my mind. It's crazy like how early finance recruiting is. Like I'm recruiting for 2026 summer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's crazy. And then I think you can even like manipulate your grad date also. I think like the biggest thing aside from school is also grad date. I know like for if you got into like Haas, you could like say you're a year younger since you're transferring as a junior. I don't know if that would have helped you like more or not, but I know that's a lot what a lot of people I'm doing, I know are doing. Do you?
Yeah, that's really rampant. Like sophomores saying they're juniors so they can apply to junior level internships.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So are you like doing like game theory and stuff like with this like econ math kind of thing, or is it more of like quantitative like finance and stuff?
Yeah, so applied math econ, that's I'm taking like the mathematical finance track. So econometrics, investments, which is like a math kind of course, corporate finance. It's mostly like math-based courses. I don't think I'm taking game theory. No. So yeah.
Mm. And like one thing about Brown is that you like transfer in as an undeclared major, is that right?
Yeah, and then so I basically have to declare one concentration, I feel like by junior year.
Okay.
So
So like do you think it's like kind of like a strategy to kind of apply for like a more niche major so that way you can like stand out? Like a lot of people that like I've heard like a lot of people that want to do CS, they kind of like apply for something more niche and then once they like get in since they're undeclared, they can kind of just like choose CS at the end. So like did you kind of take advantage of that?
I've heard of that. Me, honestly, I felt like I did not have the extracurriculars to back up a more niche major. So I just applied for applied math and econ. And then I added CS once I got here. But like, for example, Rice, they have a sports management major, which I thought was like perfect for my background. Even though I probably would have just majored in business if I went there. I applied for that. I mean, I ended up getting rejected anyways, but that's just how it is.
Hmm. Awesome. So like now that you kind of like finished up the application cycle, um, like you got into a bunch of good schools, but like you applied to a lot of schools. You think like at the end of the day, kind of just like Brown was something that you were like really expecting, or would you like kind of just was it something you're expecting, or did you kind of just like was it like just last minute kind of thing?
Man, my first decision was a rejection from UC Irvine. So
Oh my
instantly
God.
I
That's
started like panicking, like, oh shit, I'm screwed. Maybe my units, something went wrong with my units or but after that, I got into like I forgot. I think yeah, Berkeley came out first. So I at that point I was fine. But like okay, I was expecting to get into Brown because they emailed me a week beforehand asking me to see like an updated transcript. So I kind of knew what that meant. But I definitely was not expecting like to get into Brown like before that. So because I mean I got into good schools, but like I got rejected from like the majority of them. And
Hmm.
it's just luck. Like you can have a perfect application, it's really just luck.
I see, I see. And they give it, does Brown like give interviews? I know some do, but I don't know if Brown does.
Brown does not, no.
Okay.
Transfer admissions are a lot like less structured though. So I've heard of applicants getting interviews.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like they give it out like on a need base, like if they need more information or like stuff like that. But
Yeah, that's what I got.
like definitely like more unstructured. But
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much, Akshit, for coming on. I definitely learned a lot. Like I'm also an econ major, Bay Area, and I think like kind of like looking at you transferring in a year kind of like gives me that confidence that hey, like this stuff isn't just like a fucking sorry, excuse my language. It's not just like a shot in the dark. It's more of like a you people can actually do this. And yeah, thank you a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. It was nice being here.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for hopping on. It was like really insightful and like kind of you delved into the process since we don't really have like a lot of 1 year transfers. So like you kind of like opened a new perspective and like yeah, thank you for
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, catch you later.
Yeah.
In the recording.